Starfield is an upcoming original science fiction single-player video game that is being developed and published by Bethesda Softworks. The game has been in the works for over a decade now in one form or another, and is an original idea Bethesda has wanted to create for quite a while. The development has gone through leaks, major engine reworks, and has been in a playable state for the past few years. As always, all the sources will be linked in the description below, so make sure to check those out and support those original writers. Also, make sure to follow me on Twitter at FONCT2, and with that out of the way, let's get into everything we know about Starfield. Let's start with some of the pre-production news. With a headline that circulated around Starfield, is that Bethesda has been working on the game for the past decade, which is only partially true. Bethesda themselves have said the idea of a Starfield-like game has been circulating in the studio for the past decade and throughout the 2010s. And ZeniMax actually filed the trademark for Starfield back in 2013, so the name and idea had circulated around the studio for quite a while down to the exact name, but the game development in the most traditional sense didn't really start until after Fallout 4. Todd Howard confirmed this himself and gave a few additional details in 2018 during an interview with VentureBeat. They asked Todd, quote, "You said you've been talking internally about Starfield for 10 years. When you were talking to Jeff earlier, when did you actually start dedicating people to it? When did it start firming up?" And Todd Howard responded saying, quote, "After Fallout 4 ended, end of 2015, but back when 2004, we had made a list of what we might want to do in the future. Epic science fiction game that's always been on my mind. Post-apocalyptic, Fallout was our first choice, sci-fi was our second at the time. When we got the Fallout license, we were going to do our own post-apocalyptic universe if we didn't get Fallout. We just talked about it, and then I guess it really picked up steam. We were going to do this, register the trademark about 5 years ago. Then we would talk about it from time to time during that period. What are we going to do? And we started work right after Fallout 4 was finished in November of 2015. And Howard elaborated further when asked why the game process has been so long and why we haven't seen the game sooner. Howard said, quote, "For us, it's by choice. We could have, instead of making Skyrim, made Starfield. We could have made Starfield instead of making Fallout 4, but we are obviously very excited to make those games." So pre-production for the game started sometime in 2015, and for the game of this size and scope, it is definitely going to be a longer process than other Bethesda games, especially because this is a brand new world for Bethesda, so they need all new concept, engine assets, story, and world building, all of which a lot of times is done during the pre-production phase. And Bethesda has shown time and time again they are masters of doing this, but just need a lot of time to get everything in place before they can start actual development. And then we can shift from pre-development news to actual development when we got our first look at Starfield with the official announcement teaser that was released in June of 2018. And right from the start, fans were able to pick apart the trailer and find clues and details that Bethesda had hidden within. Around the 18-second mark of the trailer, text is seen in the bottom left-hand corner, and fans were able to make out the letters CONST. And then fans went further and pointed out maybe the full text is cut out and it could potentially be spelling constellation. Speculation has really gone everywhere with this text and what it means. People have found more letters and so on and so forth. Some fans think this footage is actually from a camera in space in this game world, so the full text might be constellation camera. Speculation goes on, but for the sake of this video, you only need to know that there are teasers in the trailer, and speculation was in full swing for the project in 2018. Then at E3 2018, during a live stream with GameSpot and Todd Howard, Todd said the game had only been in development for 2 or 3 years, but sections of the game were already in a very playable state. He continued on and said the team knows the game they are making now, and one of the reasons they announced the title so early is because the game now is finally coming together behind the scenes, and the team has a runway in front of them, and now they know what's happening. And this is what I mentioned before. Probably in 2015, they were working at what this world's going to be, what do we want to add, what's the story, and it sounds like they wanted to announce the title in 2018 because they've figured all that out. They've done a lot of the pre-production work, so now they can move full steam ahead knowing exactly what they want for this project and a clear vision. And at E3 as well, Todd Howard confirmed that at this point in development, Starfield is out of pre-production, which makes sense if certain parts of the game are playable, but no specifics were given when the game actually moved from pre-production to production, or what kind of timeline the game is at from a development perspective. And along with all of this, Bethesda also said that of course Starfield will be a AAA title and will be the next major title from Bethesda that they release. And the last news that came from Howard from E3 2018 that's worth mentioning is he told fans during a live stream with GameSpot that fans should be very patient with this title and with the team moving forward. And just because the team showed off this trailer doesn't necessarily mean it's coming anytime soon. Now, getting back to what I mentioned with the engine reworks, development for the project was also the first major engine rework the studio has done since Fallout 76, and the team has gone on further to say that even in terms of previous Bethesda games, this game's engine reworks is considered one of the biggest for any of their past titles, and Howard has thanked Microsoft publicly for their assistance for a lot of the updated engine work. He said at a Brighton conference, quote, "It's taken us longer than we would have liked, but it is going to power everything we're doing with Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6. When people see the results, they'll hopefully be as happy as we are with what's on screen and also how we can go about making our games." So it sounds like they will be taking advantage of this new engine they are modifying to the fullest extent. And no, this isn't a completely new engine for them, they're just updating their engine and making it more modern compared to some of their previous games. And a reason for a lot of this is they have teased extra mechanics that weren't in previous games, and a lot of fans have speculated this will be the air travel mechanics in-game, which is something completely new for a Bethesda title. I know there were dragons and previous things like that, but really traveling between planets, if that's what we do in this game, could require massive work engine-wise. And Howard has actually described flight in-game as, quote, "I want to say it's like flight in the 40s, like it's dangerous. It's still dangerous to go out and explore, even though lots of people do it." They continue on saying Starfield shouldn't be confused for a rocket engineering sim though. We have to gamify it some, so that it's not as punishing as actual space travel. And how all this flight and different mechanics work in game is yet to be seen, but it should be an interesting gameplay mechanic. And the last aspect of development the team has teased is the map, which Howard has said will be much larger than any previous Bethesda games, including Fallout 76. And to achieve this, the team will also be utilizing procedural generated worlds. At the same Brighton conference, Howard said the game will use a form of procedural generation, and this allows the developers to not have to hand make every area and encounter in the game, which will allow the game to be bigger and frees up development time. And throughout all of these changes and reworks by the team, some fans were curious if this game will still be recognizable as a Bethesda title or if it will be something completely new. Most of Bethesda's titles are open world RPGs, and fans have grown accustomed to this with Skyrim, the Elder Scrolls series, and Fallout. Eurogamer actually was able to ask Howard about the similarities that Starfield will have compared to their other titles, and if fans will be able to recognize this with some of Bethesda's DNA. And Howard responded saying, quote, "I don't want to say yes or no to that because I don't know what that means to you or whoever's going to read that. It is different, but if you sit down and play it, you would recognize it as something we made, if that makes sense. It has our DNA in it. It has things that we like, but it has a lot of new systems we've been thinking about for a while now that fit the kind of game really well. We'll talk about it in the future. See, now I wish I hadn't announced it." But at least them saying, yes, you'll know it's a Bethesda game. Hopefully it's the best things Bethesda can offer and not some of the problems people have had with previous game launches from them. And they've learned from some of the mistakes of Fallout 76 and some of these other titles. And the last pseudo news is that Bethesda has consulted SpaceX and Elon Musk to ensure they are using the correct information when developing the title, and they've said more specifically they are working with Elon to see if they can create future technology in the game in a realistic way. So they're using him, he's seen as a forward thinker, to say, okay, what would technology look whenever this game is set, whether it's 100 years, 200 years, 1,000 years, what kind of technology could we expect and how would it look? And that for the most part covers a lot of the development news. I know it's rapid fire, but that's sort of where we're at with this title. And of course, with any title of this nature, there are going to be leaks, most of which have been extensively covered, but let's quickly go over them from the start. The first leak was posted in September of 2020 on Imgur. I know it's circulated before that and there's rumors that it was found someplace else and it gets super confusing. So for the sake of this video, all you need to know is on Imgur, there were leaked images and there were 3 that were posted. The first picture was of an alleged HUD element, which includes an O2 and CO2 gauge and a few other pieces that players will have on screen at all times. The second image was a picture of a spaceship that was allegedly in-game. We aren't sure if this is the player's ship, an NPC ship, or what it is, but it is a spaceship. And fans haven't been able to reverse find this image to see if it's from another game or source because people are always very skeptical of leaks of this nature. And the final image is of a player character, with one of the HUD elements we saw before, a health and stamina bar in the other corner, and we see they do have a weapon, and on the character itself it looks like they have a jetpack. And also notice the patch on the player's shoulder. We will come back to this later, it will be a little important. But at this point, the community wasn't sure what these were. These images couldn't be traced back to other locations on the internet. And we have seen massive image leaks before like this, but fans just were curious at what these were and if this actually was from Starfield. Luckily, fans didn't have to wait too long for some more information. A Bethesda-focused YouTube channel, Scalzi, made a tweet on that same day and said, quote, "I can now say confidently that an anonymous source contacted me and verified that the recent leak is indeed real, and the images came from an early build of Starfield from 2018. And I want to say right from the start, with all insider information, I won't be able to convince you one way or another. Take it all with a grain of salt, and it all comes down to what you believe and how much you trust leaks and insiders. But Scalzi is putting his reputation on the line by making a claim like this, and I trust him with his source. And I do believe that these are real images from an early build of Starfield, and it lines up with what Todd Howard said in 2018, that the game was in a playable state at certain areas. Then in Scalzi's official Discord, another image was posted by the same leaker who had allegedly been the one who leaked the earlier images. And if this is true that it was posted in Scalzi's Discord, it lines up with Scalzi knowing more information about the leaks and being able to verify it, because it's possible he could have had private conversations with this community member if the community member is already a fan of him. Obviously, this is just speculation on my part, but it lines up with a lot of times how these insider leaks work. And this new image really isn't anything groundbreaking, except fans have zoomed and enhanced on the location on the image, and it looks like it does say a lab, so there's some sort of space lab the player is outside of. And to really put the bow on everything, the same leaker who made the first post in Scalzi's Discord went on and posted, quote, "There were more than what we've seen already. The game is targeted for 2021. And right away, this has been circulating instead, and this isn't a completely out of the question release date, but it definitely seems optimistic for the title. But if the person who is leaking these screenshots and information knows this much about the game, it is possible they are someone at Bethesda or at a million different companies who are working on this, whether it's localization and so on, who could know potentially when the game could be releasing. But once again, take it with a grain of salt, and this is kind of where the 2021 release date comes from. And the community members on Reddit have speculated that the leaker could have more images from the game because of that comment, and also because one of the file images was named DeadDrop17, and the name of itself being 17 has led to communities thinking there could be other images on the game. So fans have put all this together and gone on and on covering the leaks, trying to figure out who the leaker is and speculating if it's someone in Bethesda. Fans have also put together that this new leak is in a different picture size than the first leak, so the leaker could have taken these screenshots on different monitors and could have access to the game, which once again just led fans thinking more and more, who is this person? Is it someone from Bethesda? And then the situation got even more complex when even more screenshots were released by ESO, who is another big Bethesda YouTuber, and they're so much bigger than Bethesda now, but Bethesda games are really their bread and butter, which was a big problem for a lot of people in the community when these screenshots were released, because allegedly these screenshots could be traced back to someone who is leaking them, and people could lose their jobs because of these screenshots. From the nature of them, less people had this information, which means it's easier for Bethesda to find who was leaking them. The images themselves showed off a new look at a spacesuit, some assets in game along with some new textures, and another look at the spacesuit in game. And the final image that was leaked was a faction logo. Fans then were speculating who they thought the leaks could be from, and it led them to the lead world builder who worked on a lot of the architecture in Bethesda games, which Scalzi then confirmed was not the case and said that he was not the one leaking the images, and also said that very few people know the true origin of the leaks and who is actually the source for all this information. So many YouTubers who have been releasing their screenshots and have their own speculation are posting wrong information and claiming it as a fact. And to show that he knew more than traditional people, he released another leaked image that hadn't been seen before. It's the same suit we've seen before, and he also said it's from the 2018 version of the game. And the last information that is slightly related to leaks to back them up even more is a comparison of the patch logos that were created by a user on Reddit, who compared the E3 2018 patch, the leaked gameplay patch, and the patch we've seen on an official Starfield t-shirt, all of which are very similar, which leads more credibility to these leaks being real, even if you don't trust Scalzi or insider information. So there's been a lot of drama around a lot of the Starfield leaks. We haven't really heard Bethesda respond. They've been really coy because once again, they don't want to announce anything about the game. They want to keep it quiet. I know there were some smaller things in here, but I think if you're following the game, this is the general idea of what you need to know and kind of where ESO and Scalzi and all these people fit into this. Now we can move on to platforms we can expect the title on. Howard himself has described the game as a next generation title, but no consoles were announced, and even his next generation comment didn't really assure fans that this would be a next generation game. So he did an interview with Eurogamer and actually elaborated further and said, quote, "That to us means two things," in reference to the next generation. It does mean hardware and it does mean software on our side, and it also means gameplay. What does the next generation of epic single-player RPGs feel like to us? What systems we put it out on? What's the hardware requirements? It is still to be determined. We're pushing it, we're thinking very, very far into the future, so we're building something that will handle next generation hardware. That's what we're building on right now, that's where our mind is, but that doesn't mean it wouldn't exist on the current systems as well. So it sounds like the game at first is being developed as a next generation title for consoles and PC, but the team still will consider other platforms as well, which isn't too surprising considering the team has ported Skyrim to almost every console available, and I assume if Starfield is a big enough success, we could see a similar move from Bethesda. As for which consoles specifically, everything gets more complicated when it was announced that Microsoft purchased ZeniMax Media, which is the game publisher for Bethesda, which means games will for sure still come to the Xbox consoles and PC, along with Xbox Games Pass, which has been confirmed, but the future of Bethesda games on Sony consoles has been in question. The only real news we have about a title like this coming to PlayStation 5 or other Sony consoles comes from notable gaming journalists Jason Schreier and Dina Bass, who reported via Bloomberg that Bethesda titles still will come to other platforms on a case-by-case basis. And the only other statement fans have pointed to comes from Sarah Bong, the CVP of Gaming Partnerships and Ecosystems at Microsoft. She released an Xbox blog post in September of 2020 and mentioned Starfield. She said, quote, "One of the things that has me most excited is seeing the roadmap when Bethesda's future games coming to Xbox consoles and PC, including Starfield, the highly anticipated new space epic currently in development by Bethesda Game Studios." And this quote seems normal at first, because it is, but most fans point to one key term that's missing from this statement, and the fact that she doesn't say Starfield is coming exclusively to Xbox and PC when mentioning Starfield, which got fans thinking maybe this is a harmless mistake, but maybe it's a more clear indication that Starfield will not be an exclusive game. She is the CVP of gaming partnerships and ecosystem, so she would be in the know of where these games are going, but once again, this is all for you to decide for yourselves. I want to close out and say this, because the title has been in development for so long, I assume Bethesda has always planned on this title to come to PlayStation consoles, and more specifically the PlayStation 5. And I don't see Microsoft wanting to change that, especially they already have Game Pass, and I think that's a big enough seller. I don't think having the game as an exclusive on the Xbox Series X is that big of a draw. I think Game Pass is the draw, and I think anything additional, getting more sales from Sony, is fine enough. Especially considering the new generation of consoles has already started. I think a lot of people know what consoles they're going to get, and because Microsoft isn't really pushing they're going to have exclusive Bethesda games, I really don't think that's going to be the case. I think Microsoft has already decided probably that they'll let them still come to multiple consoles. So what should we expect from Starfield in the coming years? Well, there is a group of people who still believe Scalzi's Discord user, who claims the game will be released sometime this year in 2021. And I'm not sure where I fall on this. So much is still unknown about the game. We still don't have marketing picking up. So it wouldn't surprise me if we don't see an official release until sometime in 2022 or potentially even 2023. I would say that the game is still going to come to Sony consoles, and even if the game doesn't release this year, hopefully we get some new trailers or gameplay and Bethesda can finally start the actual marketing for the game and start to be more transparent with what's happening and when this game is coming out. For the most part, that's where I'm going to end this video, and that is everything we know about Starfield. Make sure to like and share, subscribe for weekly gaming news, and I will see you guys in the next one.